Here I'm working on a new project where I have a metal railing that's actually rusted. If you look closely at this railing, you will see all the areas that actually has started to lose paint because it's actually starting to rust out. But you know, one of the things I would like to do is to actually get rid of all the paint, flaky bits of paint and the rust, and then really coat this with a new coat of paint. So to do this job right, you need a few different things that I will show you shortly. One is blasting media, which you can see there, it says black. You can buy it at any most hardware stores. It's special blasting media, costs like about maybe $5 to $10. An air compressor, if you want to do sandblasting to remove some of the old paint and rust, air compressor is needed if you want to do any kind of sandblasting. If you don't have an air compressor, you know, you would need a wire wheel with a drill. I also have hood that I wear, but in this case I had trouble wearing the hood because of the humidity. I couldn't see through the hood, but a hood is a good thing to wear. You need gloves, you need a dust mask, you need the air hose, you need something to put the media into so you can pull it and actually blast on the railing. You can even do this by hand, it just takes longer. I was using an air compressor and sandblasting media to actually clean this up. The other thing you also need to do is to put cloth, plastic sheets underneath where you want to sandblast, because that sand is going to get everywhere. You don't want to mess, you don't want to make a mess. So you want to put something, as you can see there, I have sheets that I'm using to capture the sandblasting media, and that's what you would need also. Note that as I'm blasting the railing, I'm actually holding a piece of paper, actually a magazine right behind it, so I can minimize the amount of media that actually gets spread out onto the lawn or the sheets. I'm trying to localize where I blast. The sandblasting media is very abrasive. You would also need earplugs. You would need to wear earplugs. You know, that media will get behind your mask if you're not wearing a hood. I would recommend wearing a hood. With the humidity, it's sometimes hard to see through the hood. I have double goggles to protect my eyes because that media really gets everywhere. It'll get inside your skin, inside your shirt. You want to be wearing long sleeve shirt and pants and you know, proper shoes and socks. Once I'm actually done with the sandblasting, you can see all the media that's on the sheets. What I do is I try to recycle the media. Either I collect it and throw it in the trash, or in some cases I also reuse it. Like in this case, I actually collected it in another bucket so I can reuse it. But after you use it a few times, you would have to throw it out. But I don't like to leave it on the lawn or the grass or the landscaping that I have. After you've done actually going through the first sandblasting or wire wheel scraping off of the rust, you want to try and check and make sure that you have indeed gotten all the loose paint off. You can actually touch and feel it as I'm doing here, and try to see if you have actually gotten everything you need to get off. You may have to do this a few times, you know, in different areas. Look at it closely. The railing is kind of difficult because it's got a lot of texture to it, a lot of different areas, and I'm kind of pointing to some areas which I don't think I got enough of the rust off. So after I'm actually done sandblasting and I'm sure that the railing is pretty much cleared of all the rust and the paint flakes, I actually use a solution, as you can see there, to actually clean the railing. I clean it from one end to the other and make sure I get all the nooks and crannies and the little curves in the railing. You know, when you get a quote from a contractor to actually paint this, they actually charge you quite a bit because of all the details they have to go through. And you only appreciate it once you do it yourself, and you can kind of see everything I'm doing right there to clean everything up. And once I'm done, you can actually see the areas which would need the primer. You can see some areas with paint and some areas that need the primer. You'll see the areas that I've actually coated with primer. I haven't really covered all the areas with primer, just the areas that lost the paint and looked kind of red, which had the primer on it before. The areas that appear black, in this case this paint railing is black, you don't need to apply any primer on those areas. But when you paint it, you'll paint everything. I decided to change the color on this railing. As you can see, it's no longer black. I'm using like a beige color. I'm using a spray paint to cover this railing with. You can use spray paint or you can use a paintbrush to actually paint the railing. It's based on your preference. The only reason I started spray painting is because I had a couple of cans of old paint that I wanted to use up, and I continued using a similar paint to finish it up. And always when you spray paint, you want to hold something like a newspaper or a magazine behind the areas you're spray painting so you don't get paint all over the landscape. This railing actually took me like 3 to 4 cans of spray paint, and each can cost about $5 each, I believe. So it wasn't all that cheap to do this paint job. I wish I had just bought one can and used a paintbrush to do this, but you know, I started with the spray paint which I had, and I had to finish up with the spray paint. For the bottom of this railing, I decided to use green paint. I had plenty of green paint that I had lying around, so I decided to paint the bottom in green. And I used actually a paintbrush, and you can see me using a mirror to paint underneath the railing areas which I couldn't really see. So that's what I did. You can also see me using a paint thinner to clean out the paintbrush. I'm using an old oil can to actually clean out the paintbrush with paint thinner, because the paint that I have, the green paint, is oil paint. You can't wash it off with water. You need to use a paint thinner to clean the brush. So that's what I'm doing there, and I'm wiping off the paintbrush on newspapers to actually get the paint off the brush. You want to get the paint off the brush before you put it away, or you will never be able to use that brush again.